Hi and welcome to Prepping Essentials. So it's finally happened. Something has hit the fan. Whatever crisis that you've been imagining has suddenly come to pass and you need to survive. Well, prepping is all about surviving when something hits the fan, but it's not all about bullets and beans. So what else do we need in order to survive? Let's find out. Many preppers and people who comment on prepping blogs and videos will quite often say that they have their preps in place and that they know exactly what they're going to do when something hits the fan. However, if you ask anyone in the military, they'll tell you that there is a very old saying which goes something along the lines of, "No plan survives beyond first contact with the enemy." So what does that mean? Well, essentially what it means is that you might well put a plan into place for something that may happen in the future, but as time passes by, situations change, circumstances evolve, and by the time something does hit the fan, your plan will definitely need updating because something will have changed, there'll be something that you've not foreseen or couldn't have foreseen, and in order to overcome the crisis that you're facing, you'll need to quickly adapt and adjust the plan that you were working from. So whilst it's great to have all of your preps, including your bullets and your beans, in place, the purpose of this video really is to look at more depth into the subject of planning for whatever something hit the fan scenario it is that is of concern to you. Now, the plan isn't to list out a range of all the different things that you should do if this happens or what you should do if that happens, because everybody's personal circumstances are going to be different. The types of crisis which an individual is prepping for will be different to what other people might be prepping for. Depending on where they live, some people will have access to more resources than others. Some will have more financial resource than others. People will have different skill sets and experience to other people. And some people might need to just plan for themselves, while others may need to plan for a family or even an extended family. The variables are almost endless. So the purpose of this video really is to get people thinking about a few key things when it comes to planning for a crisis. These are things which should apply to everyone and which hopefully will help you create a plan and adapt all of your plans and then to communicate your plan to everyone who needs to know it. So where do we start with our plan? Well, while it might sound a bit simple, the first question you should consider is, what crisis do I think might realistically happen? I wouldn't get bogged down with this question. Yes, the list of possible scenarios is huge, but realistically, there are probably not so many which are actually likely to happen in the short term. For example, it's fairly unlikely that aliens will invade tomorrow, or that Russia will start launching nukes, or that an asteroid will fall to Earth, or that a huge solar flare will erupt and send us all back to the Dark Ages. However, in your area you might be prone to severe weather events such as hurricanes, earthquakes or tornadoes. Given the state of the world economy, most people could be at risk of sudden unemployment, an economic recession, cost of living inflation. It's also not so unrealistic, given the ease of global travel, that an infectious disease could break out in your area, even if it's just a localised flu bug. Any of these events could of course cause shortages of basic essential supplies, and of course they could also lead to civil disorder and a breakdown of law and order if they were to continue for a prolonged period of time. So what I'm suggesting is that you take some time to consider all of the things that could go wrong and list the ones which would be more likely to occur in the foreseeable future. Realistically, you should only end up with a short list of 3 or 4 possible issues, and it's for these issues that you should make your plans. For those of you who like to cover all the bases, then relax, because the good news is that much of the planning for any of the specific events that we've mentioned is easily transferable and relevant for other types of events. Once you've covered the more likely scenarios, then you can always expand your planning at a later date to include those which might be less likely to occur. Okay, so now you have your list of possible scenarios, let's take a look at some of the more important issues for you to consider when you're making your plans. First of these would be, where do you expect to be living? This might sound like a strange question, and you might simply point to where you are right now and say, well, here. By that you mean your family home, and in most circumstances you'd probably be correct in assuming that's the best place to be, since all of your supplies will be there and it's a comfortable place to be. However, you should consider your possible scenarios for a moment. Depending on what it is that's on your list, your home might not be the safest place to be, and indeed it might not even exist. For example, if you live in an earthquake or hurricane zone, then your house could be wiped out as a result of the crisis event. Similarly, if you're planning on living in a secondary location, say a bug out location, then consider how that place also might be impacted by the event. Wherever you intend to live, you should consider how you'll actually get there during a crisis. For example, if you're at work when the crisis hits, then how do you get home? Similarly, if you need to move to a bug out location, how will the route there be impacted by the crisis? Wherever you intend to live, you should also consider how safe it would be as the crisis event evolves. For example, your home may survive the earthquake, but would it be a safe and defensible place for you to live from other people who survived the earthquake and are out hunting around for supplies or places to shelter? Finally, if you plan on living alone during a crisis, then consider how this might affect you. Yes, you'll need less supplies and you can move more quickly. You'll also have less to worry about just being responsible for yourself. However, it will have a negative impact on how much physical work can be done in a given time, such as foraging, shelter building, cooking, etc. It's obvious that you can do more work with a group rather than as an individual. It'll also have a negative impact on your security and general well-being. You can't defend yourself when you're asleep, and defending your home and supplies will be much more effective with a group. And being within a group also helps promote confidence and normally gives you a more positive outlook. Wherever you are and whoever you're with, you are going to need some essential supplies and equipment. Much of this will be obvious, and as a prepper you'll already have much of this in hand. However, if you consider again the list of possible scenarios, where you'll be living and who you'll be living with, you may find that you need to add some things to your list of supplies and equipment. When drawing up your original list of supplies and equipment, you might have forgotten to account for, say, the medical needs of one of the people in your group, or the dietary needs of smaller children in your group. Similarly, you might not have considered what you might need to sustain you during the time spent travelling home from work during a crisis, or in transit from your usual home to your bug out location. The more basic prepping stores will include the normal things such as water, food, fuel and energy, both for the longer term in your home and in portable form for use during journeys. Other equipment might include hand tools, cooking equipment, power generation equipment, portable shelters and weapons for hunting or self-defense. But thinking about the types of scenarios you might face and the potential duration of the foreseen crisis, you might want to add to your list such things as medical equipment and supplies. If a pandemic breaks out, you'll want plenty of face masks. If there's a chemical or biological attack or accident, you'll want disposable clothing and gas masks or decontamination gear. What about materials to improve home security or to repair doors, windows and roofs, especially in the case of civil disorder? You might want to consider changing your mode of transport from a car to a van or a pickup truck, or maybe some other kind of 4x4, so that you can travel over rough terrain or carry larger amounts of supplies. Indeed, you might want to consider alternative modes of transport such as boats or bicycles to avoid getting caught up in the gridlocked roads during a crisis. What about long-term food and water? The longer the crisis, the more chance of your stored supplies running out, so you might want to buy more hunting, foraging or gardening equipment and supplies, or you might want to expand on your water collection and purification system. Whatever equipment you do have, consider redundancy. Try to have more than one tool for the job. Another old prepper saying is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So think about what you would do if you lost or broke your knife, saw, fire starting tool or some other kind of essential equipment. Or if you had to bug out and leave your home, what would you have waiting for you at your bug out location? Another old saying that springs to mind is from my military days, and that is, they have all the gear but no idea. It's all right having lots of bullets and beans, but only if you know what to do with them. There is no substitute for skill and experience. If you are going to stock gear, then please make sure you know how to use it and become proficient through practicing with it. Can you light a fire with the gear that you have in your preps? Once you've lit the fire, can you then cook a meal with that fire? Do you have the gear to collect water from a dirty river and turn it into clean, safe drinking water? And if so, have you actually tried doing it? Do you have a way of getting washed and to go to the toilet without using the regular bathroom in your home? Could you catch a rabbit, clean it, and then turn it into a safe meal to eat? If you consider all of the routine activities you do in your home on any normal day, then think about how you would be able to reproduce the same things if your mains power and water stopped, or if you could no longer go shopping for supplies. Only by doing this will you be able to write up a list of items you need to go out and get, or know which of the skills you need to brush up on, or even learn from scratch. It's an interesting and quite fulfilling activity to try out, and it's one which you're far better off doing now rather than waiting until after the crisis has occurred. The last but crucial thought on the subject of planning is the issue of communications. It's great to have a plan, but everyone in your group needs to know about it and at least be familiar with it. A crisis by its very nature is sudden and generally occurs without warning. It's of little use to have a plan if no one knows about it, and there'll be little time to explain the plan once the crisis occurs. One of the more important parts of the plan is the subject of what immediate action people need to take in the early stages of a crisis. This could be actions that they need to take when it becomes obvious that a crisis situation is starting to develop, or what to do when the crisis event actually starts to happen. Some events will have some warning signs. For example, severe weather events rarely happen without warning. Usually there'll be a warning in the news media beforehand, and similarly incidents of terrorism or civil disorder will be quickly reported in the news media as soon as they unfold. Whatever the scenario, it's important that your plan includes some kind of trigger for people to take action. This could be things like going out to get additional stores of food, water, medication or other supplies. Or it could be that people don't go to work or school that day, or maybe they come home early that day. It could even be that people gather at a pre-arranged location with whatever supplies they can carry, ready to move together in a group to a place of shelter. Communication before, during and after an event will be a significant factor in the successful delivery of any plan you might have, so you should make sure that you have a way to communicate with all members of your group. During a crisis, it's highly likely that regular methods of communication, such as the internet or mobile phones, will be disrupted. Indeed, for many types of emergency incidents, the local authorities will deliberately turn off the mobile phone network. So don't rely on these alone as a method of communicating during a crisis. Depending on the nature of the crisis, landline telephones may continue to work, albeit for a short period, so these could be an option. But the better option is to have CB or ham radios, especially if you need to communicate as a group or while on the move. Obviously, much will depend on your personal circumstances, as some members of your group may live or work a considerable distance from where the crisis occurs, so radio might not be an option until you've assembled together as a group. It's therefore worth setting out in your emergency plans something which triggers an action for people to do something or to gather together as a group. For example, you could agree that if communication within the group is lost for more than 24 hours, then you should go to a predetermined location, either to meet up in person, to collect messages, or to move out to your bug out location. Whatever the trigger event or the action that needs to be taken, it's better to agree it in your plan in advance. There'll be enough chaos and stress during the crisis without having the additional worry of a family member who has lost contact with you. Finally, when considering the subject of communication, please don't overlook the importance of knowing what exactly is going on around you outside of your own family group. It's quite surprising how many people don't check the local or national news media on a daily basis. We live in an information age where events around the world are quickly communicated back to us, no matter where we live. I'd therefore encourage everyone to routinely check the news headlines so you can keep informed as far in advance about any potential threats that may be heading your way. That news headline about Ebola in the Congo today could be a news headline about Ebola spreading to your local city tomorrow. So stay informed so that you can be the first to take action. Finally, I've just scratched the surface with this video, so please do have a dig around on the internet, do your own research, as there's a huge amount of information out there on the subject of emergency planning, whatever your potential crisis might be. But I'll leave you with one final old saying, which is, pay attention, because if you snooze, you lose. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you found it informative. If you did like the video, then please do click on the like button. Also feel free to hit the subscribe button so that you can easily find your way back and so that you can be kept informed as and when we load future videos. But for now, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.